Imagine the roar of waves, sand in your teeth, smoke stinging your eyes. You're not just watching history, you're standing in the middle of it. In 1998, Steven Spielberg released Saving Private Ryan, a film that didn't just depict war, it dragged audiences into the chaos, the fear, and the humanity of World War II in a way that changed cinema forever. But behind its haunting realism was a long road of difficult choices, unexpected accidents, and moments that blurred the line between performance and reality. Here are 20 jaw-dropping facts you've probably never heard. Let's saddle up.
Number 1.
When the film opened, the Omaha Beach landing scene hit harder than anyone predicted. In theaters across the United States, World War II veterans reacted in ways no one could have scripted. Some sat silently, their eyes locked on the screen. Others had to walk out, overcome by flashbacks and panic attacks. Spielberg filmed the sequence with no emotional filter, just the raw sound of machine gun fire, the screams of wounded men, and the chaos of the surf. For many survivors, it didn't feel like a movie at all. One veteran simply said, "I saw my friends again, and I couldn't stay in the room."
Number 2.
The sound design team didn't settle for stock effects. They recorded actual World War II-era weapons, firing into sand, water, and metal to capture the exact texture of battlefield noise. Then, during filming, they fed those sounds directly into earpieces worn by the actors. Every time someone hit the ground on screen, the crack of bullets wasn't just in the scene, it was right behind them. The fear you see in their eyes? Much of it wasn't acting.
Number 3.
Those blasts of sand and smoke? They were real detonations, triggered without warning to keep the cast on edge. Spielberg deliberately kept the timing unpredictable. In war, you never know when the next explosion will hit, so neither did his actors. One performer dropped to the ground too soon. Another froze mid-line after being splattered with fake blood. Spielberg kept it all, because genuine surprise looked better than choreographed fear.
Number 4.
Screenwriter Robert Rodat originally handed in a tight, structured war story. Spielberg read it once and said, "Too clean. Too much movie, not enough memory." He had Rodat rewrite it with rough edges, awkward silences, and scenes that felt like fragments of lived experience rather than perfectly staged moments.
Number 5.
Spielberg wanted Private Ryan to be played by someone audiences didn't know, a blank slate. Matt Damon, young and relatively unknown, was perfect. Then Good Will Hunting exploded before Saving Private Ryan was released, turning Damon into an Oscar-winning star overnight. Ironically, Spielberg had chosen him for anonymity and ended up with one of the most famous faces of 1998.
Number 6.
Before Saving Private Ryan was released to the public, Steven Spielberg arranged a private screening for a group of elderly World War II veterans, men who had actually stormed the beaches of Normandy. This wasn't a red carpet affair. No press, no photographers, no fanfare. It took place in a small theater with dim lights and quiet seating. Many of the veterans walked in using canes, some in wheelchairs carrying the weight of decades. As the film began, there was an uneasy silence. When the D-Day sequence played, some men gripped the armrest so hard their knuckles went white. Others closed their eyes but didn't look away. When the credits rolled, nobody applauded. Instead, they sat still, lost in their own memories. One veteran reportedly turned to Spielberg and simply said, "You got it right." For Spielberg, that was the only review that truly mattered.
Number 7.
When Tom Hanks was preparing to play Captain John H. Miller, Spielberg gave him one note above all others. "You are a man who's trying not to let his men see how scared he is." Hanks decided to give Miller a subtle but telling trait, a trembling right hand. In the film, you see it most clearly when Miller tries to drink from a canteen or load a magazine. The shaking isn't overdone, but it's persistent. A reminder that even the calmest leaders aren't immune to fear. Hanks never once explained it to the audience. It was there for the observant viewer to notice. That detail came from stories of real officers in World War II who developed physical tics from prolonged combat stress. Some called it battle fatigue, others nerves. But today it's recognized as a symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. It's a quiet thread through the film, making Miller human and relatable in a way that's more powerful than any speech.
Number 8.
The main cast endured 10 days of military boot camp in full gear, training in mud, rain, and exhaustion. But Damon was kept out of it on purpose, so that when his character met the others, the on-screen tension and resentment would be genuine.
Number 9.
When Steven Spielberg decided that Tom Sizemore was the perfect choice to play Sergeant Mike Horvath, the studio wasn't convinced. Sizemore had a public history of substance abuse, and in the high-pressure world of a major film set, one relapse could derail the entire production. Spielberg, however, believed in redemption and discipline. He made Sizemore an offer that was as much a lifeline as it was a contract. Sizemore could have the role, but he had to take a drug test every single day of filming. No exceptions, no warnings. If he failed even once, Spielberg would fire him on the spot and reshoot every single scene he'd appeared in, no matter the cost. Sizemore later said that waking up each morning and proving he was clean became a personal mission. The role wasn't just about acting anymore, it was about earning the trust of an entire crew and holding the line in his own life. In many ways, Sizemore's battle behind the camera mirrored Sergeant Horvath's role in the film, keeping the team together, no matter how brutal the odds. Years later, Sizemore admitted that the job may have saved his life.
Number 10.
In the climactic moments of Saving Private Ryan, Captain Miller, mortally wounded, pulls Private Ryan close and utters two simple words: "Earn this." That line was never in the script. It came entirely from Tom Hanks, who felt that Miller, a quiet, selfless leader who had carried the weight of his men's lives, wouldn't die with a speech. He'd leave Ryan with a burden, a challenge, a moral debt. Spielberg immediately recognized the power of the improvisation and decided it would be the emotional anchor of the entire story. There was no second take, no tweaking. What audiences see in the film is exactly how it happened in that moment. Raw, unplanned, and deeply personal. For many veterans, those words became the line that summed up their own post-war lives. They'd made it home, but they lived every day asking themselves if they had truly earned the sacrifices of those who didn't. The phrase left the screen and entered living rooms, letters, and quiet conversations between old friends who had survived the same beaches that inspired the film.
Number 11.
John Williams, one of the most celebrated composers in film history, created a haunting score for Saving Private Ryan. But for the most harrowing scene, the D-Day landing at Omaha Beach, Spielberg made a radical choice. No music at all. From the moment the landing craft ramps drop, the soundtrack is pure chaos. Bullets whistling overhead, soldiers screaming, explosions tearing the sand apart. The absence of music denies the audience emotional comfort. There's no heroic swell, no cinematic reassurance. You're left with the raw mechanical rhythm of war. Spielberg wanted viewers to feel abandoned in that moment, just as the soldiers were, with no guiding hand, no narration, no signal of when the nightmare would end. When Williams' music finally enters later in the film, it doesn't bring relief. Instead, it deepens the sorrow, as if reminding us of the cost paid for those few who survived.
Number 12.
Those weathered, creaking vessels seen charging toward Omaha Beach weren't Hollywood props. Spielberg located 5 authentic LCVP Higgins boats, the exact model used during Operation Overlord in 1944. Many had been left to rust for decades in shipyards and naval storage facilities. Each was painstakingly restored, steel plating rewelded, engines rebuilt, and ramps repaired until they could still slam down with the heavy clang they made on D-Day. For the cast, stepping inside wasn't like walking onto a set. It was stepping into a floating coffin. The wood was worn, the smell of old oil and salt water lingered, and the knowledge that these very vessels had once carried young men into battle was enough to make more than one actor pause in silence before filming began.
Number 13.
Those jagged, X-shaped metal obstacles scattered across the shoreline, known as Czech hedgehogs, were no random set decoration. They were historically accurate recreations of German beach defenses, originally designed to stop tanks, but repurposed to block landing craft. During the real D-Day invasion, these hedgehogs were intended to be hidden beneath the tide, but the Allies landed at low tide, exposing every razor-edged obstacle, forcing soldiers to run further up the sand under relentless machine gun fire. Spielberg had his art department construct them to exact historical measurements. planting them deep into the sand so they would shift and shudder under the impact of waves, just as they had in 1944.
Number 14.
The fictional Private James Francis Ryan was inspired by a real paratrooper, Fritz Nyland of the 101st Airborne Division. Nyland's 3 brothers were all reported killed in action, prompting the U.S. War Department to pull him from combat under the sole survivor policy. Screenwriter Robert Rodat stumbled upon Nyland's story while researching in a small-town library. It stopped him cold, not because it was a perfect plot for a war movie, but because it forced a moral question. Was it worth risking multiple lives to save one? Spielberg embraced this question, shaping the movie not as a story about victory, but about the human cost of mercy.
Number 15.
The final scene of the film, where an older James Ryan visits Captain Miller's grave, was shot at the Normandy American Cemetery overlooking Omaha Beach. This is no set. Every single cross and Star of David in the background marks a real fallen soldier. The crew moves slowly and quietly, filming with minimal equipment to avoid disturbing the sanctity of the site. Spielberg reportedly walked the grounds alone before shooting, reflecting on the weight of what they were about to capture. When the scene was finally filmed, there was no need for speeches. The rows of headstones told the story better than any line of dialogue.
Number 16.
By the end of 1998, Saving Private Ryan had earned over $480 million worldwide, second only to Armageddon that year, and became the highest-grossing World War II film ever made. It held that title for nearly 2 decades, until Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk in 2017. But its impact went beyond numbers. Veterans organizations reported increased membership, history teachers began using scenes in classrooms, and war museums noted a spike in attendance from younger audiences inspired to learn about the events depicted. The film didn't just succeed commercially, it reignited public interest in one of history's most significant battles.
Number 17.
When negotiating his deal, Spielberg told the studio he didn't want to profit from Saving Private Ryan. He called the idea of making money from the deaths of real soldiers blood money. Instead, he waived his salary and any back-end profits, directing those funds to veterans organizations and causes related to the preservation of World War II history. He made no public announcements, no press releases. It was a private gesture that matched the humility of the film's message.
Number 18.
The U.S. Department of Defense began using Saving Private Ryan as part of PTSD awareness training, not for soldiers, but for therapists. Many younger mental health professionals had never spoken to World War II veterans, and the film's visceral portrayal of combat became a powerful way to help them understand what their patients had endured. The sound design, the chaotic camera work, and the unflinching violence weren't just cinematic, they were educational, helping bridge the gap between generations.
Number 19.
After the film's release, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs reported a significant increase in World War II veterans seeking counseling. Many were in their 70s or 80s and had never spoken about their wartime experiences. Not to their families, not to their doctors, not even to themselves. For some, watching the film brought buried memories to the surface. For others, it was seeing their own youth, their friends, their fear, reflected on the screen that finally gave them the courage to talk. The movie didn't just depict history, it helped write a new chapter in how that history was remembered and shared.
Number 20.
While recording the score at Boston Symphony Hall, John Williams asked Tom Hanks to read aloud the Bixby Letter, a letter written by President Abraham Lincoln to a mother who had lost 5 sons in the Civil War. There were no cameras, no audience, just Hanks, standing in the center of the hall speaking to an orchestra that slowly fell silent. By the final sentence, there wasn't a single dry eye in the room. No one could raise a bow or blow a note. The grief wasn't just being performed, it was being felt. That emotional weight found its way into the final score, carrying the echo of that private moment into every theater that heard it.
Bonus.
One of Spielberg's boldest decisions wasn't about what to show, it was about what not to show. During the Normandy beach landing sequence, there's a moment when the roar of war fades into near silence, and we only hear Captain Miller's muffled breathing, his ears ringing from an explosion. That choice wasn't just a stylistic flourish. It was a deliberate attempt to replicate the auditory exclusion soldiers often experience in combat. Many veterans have described moments in battle when the chaos goes quiet, replaced by a high-pitched ringing and a tunnel-like focus. Spielberg worked closely with sound designer Gary Rydstrom to recreate this phenomenon, making the audience feel like they were inside Miller's head. It's a small detail, but for soldiers who had lived through real firefights, it was one of the most chillingly accurate touches in the entire film. And if you enjoyed diving into these behind-the-scenes stories as much as I enjoyed sharing them, let's keep this adventure going. Hit that like button, tap subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive, and drop a comment telling me your favorite Men in Tights moment, or which movie you want me to uncover the secrets of next. I read every single one, and who knows, your idea might be the star of the next video.